All right. Hi, everyone. Um, we're back here today with Rahul Nagvekar, who's agreed to speak with us. Thank you for your time. Could you give us a brief introduction?
Sure, thanks, Ahilan. Great to be here. My name is Rahul. I am doing a PhD in genetics at Stanford, where I work on aging research, and in particular, a type of fish that's very unique in having a short lifespan, and that's why I think it might be quite useful for aging research. So hopefully, we'll get to talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, I've always been fascinated by maps and globes since I was very young, and participated in the National Geographic Bee and won the contest in 2012, and that was definitely a great experience in my life to the 5 years that I spent participating in that, and I had a lot of fun. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we'll start by it's been a while. But how did you get into geography, and maps and um, well, just tell us about what the geography view was like.
Yeah, so I think it's really from when I could, as early as I could remember. I think there was a globe that my parents had that I just loved to spin around. I'm sure, as a toddler, I'm sure it was more for the spinning than for any kind of interest in geography per se. But from that, I must have absorbed some information, and I was always fascinated, and I still am, honestly. I just like looking at maps. I just think they're beautiful, I guess. And I remember there was one time when I was like 4 or something that my parents were like asking me just for fun about like the capitals of various countries, and they were very surprised. I was also very surprised that I knew them just from having looked at these maps. I mean, I didn't really have any sense of geography or what all of these things meant in a broader way, but yeah, it was just something that had always fascinated me. So I think in I guess the fourth grade, right, is the first year that the National Geographic Bee. Yeah, I can't even remember. It's been so long. That was probably 2008, so like 16 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So I think in my school, elementary school, we didn't have the National Geographic Bee before then. But then, like, one of my teachers was like knew that I was like super interested in it, and so I really helped organize it. And yeah, I went from there, and the first year I think I was eliminated in the state competition, and like the first round of the state competition, and then the year after that I was like fourth in the state competition, after that third, after that second, and it wasn't until the last year that I actually won the state competition, and then went to the national one. So it was definitely a lot of things that didn't quite go perfectly for me, which was fine because I enjoyed it, and I wanted to. I remember even the year that I did win the national competition, there was somebody who asked me when I made the final 10 or whatever, like, oh, what's your goal? And I said I want to be in the last two because I want to be there for the last question because I'd seen the national competition, on TV on all the previous years, and just wanted to be part of it, and wanted to try and answer those questions because I thought they were fun. So yeah, that's what it was, and ended up working out. I got very lucky. Didn't really expect to win at all, and there were definitely some questions that I didn't know, which I made some lucky guesses. But it was a great experience over.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned watching previous national bees because I started competing in 2015, and so your bees was one of the like more recent bees when I started competing, and so
Uh,
we're watching your nationals. So it's really cool to just think back to that. After winning the bee and leaving middle school, which is when eligibility for the bee ended, what did you end up doing? And what kind of got you into science?
Yeah, so I think I think the interest in geography from a very young age was also coupled to an interest in wildlife, and I guess the natural world broadly, if you like. I was very lucky that my parents wanted to take trips when I was growing up, to road trips to Western states, and went to Alaska twice, and I think that did kind of it fit very well with my interest in geography and whatnot, but also encouraged my curiosity about science. And that was something that I think when I was in high school, I remember there was a particular time when it was, I think, in the 10th grade, when my high school biology teacher showed us this documentary about epigenetics, which is basically like how your gene expression is like regulated. And this was, a term that I never heard at that time. It was a Nova documentary from PBS called "Ghost in Your Genes," and they showed this examples. It was like I'm probably going to get some of the details here wrong, but like a famine in Sweden, where several generations later, based on whether your grandparents or whatever had survived the famine or had less food or more food during the famine, like that was a big predictor of your health status, like, 3 generations later. And I was like, this is so crazy, and just almost scary. And I think it had that same kind of like fascination for me as the maps and globes and wildlife and all of those things. And I wouldn't say that was like the only reason for me to want to pursue science and want to pursue research, but I think it was definitely one of the first things where I realized that, oh, this is a way that I can, satisfy this curiosity that I have, and also, also help people, and that's what I hope to do with the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah. And so you had this interest in science and eventually you went to, I believe it was Yale for undergrad.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and so how did you continue that? Since you're on a PhD track, I imagine you're gone to research somehow. So how was that like?
Yeah, so I was, pretty interested in this idea of epigenetics, and in particular, there was a lab that I worked in for all 4 years that I was at Yale, that was involved in cancer epigenetics. So how are these processes, impacting cancer and how that develops, and especially how our bodies can protect ourselves from cancer, which, it's good if we can boost those defenses, right? And then hopefully the rates of cancer will be lower. So that was definitely a time when I, spent a lot of time in the lab doing research, and kind of encouraged my interest in pursuing that further with the PhD. The other thing which I did in college, which was a hobby and very, which I look upon very fondly, and that definitely came from my interest in geography, was that I was involved with the Yale Politic, which is a political magazine, a student-run publication on campus. And that was something where I especially had an interest in stories that were international, places which I maybe knew of from when I was involved with the Geography Bee or had learned about. And I just found it amazing that I had another opportunity to like talk to people from there, and interview them and write stories about these kind of places. So that was really a highlight of my experience in college, and it was something that was very different from the science that I was doing, but also was really fun, and definitely I credit that to my interest in geography.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear that. Could you tell us a bit more about those experiences in undergrad and like what were some cool things you did with the research or like what was one of your favorite articles that you might have written for the Politic?
Yeah. So with my research, basically what I ended up doing with my senior thesis was regarding this enzyme called Cas13. So you might have heard about CRISPR, the DNA editing technology that won the Nobel Prize in chemistry a few years ago. The people who discovered it won the Nobel Prize. But the Cas13 that I worked with is basically the equivalent of that for RNA, which is a slightly different, chemical molecule that's also involved in uh, expression of genes and so forth. So that was something which I was trying to use that technology, the RNA version of CRISPR, if you like, in order to manipulate some of these RNA molecules that play a role in the genetic process. But in addition to this research that I did at Yale, I also had an opportunity, which is also something that I'm really, really feel fortunate that I had, which was to work for one summer in Zimbabwe. And that was again something where I think I really had that interest in wanting to travel and wanting to do research abroad, and it came to be an incredible and unique opportunity. Actually, through Stanford, it's totally different from the research that I do now, but it was with the Stanford professor that I worked on a project about human papillomavirus, which causes cervical cancer. But not all HPV infections lead to cervical cancer. It's actually a very small proportion. And so the question was, is there a way that we can better, be able to tell early whether a certain HPV infection is likely to lead to cervical cancer or not. And for that, we were actually also looking at epigenetics, some of these things about chemical modifications in the DNA that would affect gene expression and so forth. So that's, I was in Zimbabwe for, I think, 2.5 months. I think it was June through August of 2018. And I stayed with the host family who were really, really incredible people, still very close friends. I collaborated with a master's student in Zimbabwe on this project, who's again a great friend of mine, Matt Zobo. And it was also the time when Zimbabwe was having their elections. So that was a topic that we were talking a lot about, and it was wonderful to hear people's opinions about politics and about how life was over there. And yeah, it's an amazing country. I highly recommend. I know maybe it has a reputation as not at the top of people's tourist destination list, but I really do highly recommend anybody to visit, and a country with very warm and friendly people. And I'm very glad that I had the chance to do some research there. You also asked about some of the fun stories that I wrote for the Politic. I think one of my favorites was that I don't know if people know about this, but Pablo Escobar, the drug lord from Colombia, he had this population of hippos that he imported to his ranch in Colombia. And then when he was killed, the authorities, he had various animals at his zoo, essentially, Hacienda Annapolis. And then the authorities tried to give away the various animals, but the hippos they couldn't move. So now there's this population of feral hippos that's in the Magdalena River in Colombia that is, breeding very well because the climate and habitat and whatnot is perfect for them. And honestly, they're doing better than the hippos in Africa in terms of their population growth. So that was a very fun story where I got to interview biologists and others from Colombia, and learn about this just incredible quirk of history, that there are these hippos over there. And I think that was kind of the thing that I was always attracted to with the geography as well, of these really strange and unexpected things. And you have to have the opportunity to write a story about that and talk to people who were, really involved. That was really fun.
Yeah, definitely sounds like an interesting story to see in a political magazine.
Mhm.
Yeah. So going off of those experiences, what really, my next question is what motivated you to apply to grad school and more specifically the program you're in at Stanford, the Knight
Mhm.
Hennessy Fellowship? Um, and well, yeah, what motivated you to seek out these opportunities?
Yeah, I think with grad school, it was always this idea of, oh, I want to do research and I want to, I was specifically interested in epigenetics. A lot of that is in genetics departments, in various universities. So the one here at Stanford definitely had a lot of faculty who I was really interested in their work and in working with them. And actually, by a happy coincidence, the fish that I work on now in my PhD, it is from Zimbabwe, actually. It's
Oh,
called the African
that's really
turquoise killifish. Yeah, it's found in Zimbabwe and Mozambique, and actually the when we make various mutants and whatnot with CRISPR, but the what we call the wild type strain, the one that's not mutated, we call GRZ for Gonarezhou National Park in Zimbabwe. So yeah, that was something that I had an interest in, the fact that this is a very unique system. A lot of aging research is done in mice, but it's trying to bring a different perspective, and I think it had the same kind of like novelty factor of being strange and unexpected that I was attracted to that particular research. Just about the Night Hennessy program, I think especially after when I was in college and having such a great time with the experience of doing journalism as a hobby, and doing a lot of things that were kind of outside of the field of biology, I really did appreciate that opportunity that the Night Hennessy program would afford me as well to kind of interact with a lot of people outside of my field, and form great friendships with people with so many different perspectives. And actually, one of the opportunities that I had through the Night Hennessy program last year was to travel to Jordan, which was also a wonderful experience with a group of 20 people across different disciplines all in that program. And we had a tour for a week, and that was yeah, a wonderfully educational experience.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because that was going to be my next question. One of the things that I've seen with this program is that they have a wide variety of different graduate school students who are in different programs and come from different walks of life, all kind of being in this space. And so, what are some cool ideas or experiences that have sprung out of this essentially melting pot of ideas and people passionate about making a difference in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that we were very much encouraged to do during our first year in the program was storytelling. So it was partially about being able to communicate with people across different fields and how to tell the stories in a compelling way. And one of the things that came out of that was for me giving a presentation about my research in a way that was broadly accessible to people and exciting for people across so many different fields. And I think that that has really shaped the way that I think about my research, the impact of my research, and what is the target audience? Because it's very easy to get very technical in terms of what you're doing in day-to-day experiments and how you should interpret that data and whatnot, but also having this like broader perspective. I think that that has really shaped the way that I think about the research. I mentioned the trip to Jordan, which was a really wonderful experience. I think the Night Tennessee gives one international trip to all of the scholars, which it's really wonderful. Each is kind of themed around a different topic, and in my case, it was water scarcity in Jordan and water conservation, which was a topic that I really didn't know anything about. So it was very wonderful to be there with a Stanford professor who is actually in the water law. He's in the law school and works on water law, a subject that I really didn't have any knowledge of before. But talking to him, even not just about the situation in Jordan, but also in a lot of the American West, water law is a very significant issue. Um, uh, Something I maybe didn't appreciate before, and have a new perspective on that. It was great.
Yeah. And so going on that note, I wanted to ask, for anyone who's interested in programs like the Night Hennessy program or that specific program, what do you suggest they do? Or not in terms of like, oh, this type of essay or this proposal, but just in the way of thinking that I guess the program promotes.
Mm.
Seems to promote a very like interdisciplinary, collaborative
Right.
mindset.
Yeah.
But in a more unique way that I feel is not done justice by those two words, just based on your descriptions. So,
Mm.
like, what do you think someone who's interested in those types of experiences should think about?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that interdisciplinary and collaborative, that is definitely what I, emphasized when I was applying. And I definitely felt like my experience in Zimbabwe was an example of that because, I was there for a scientific project, but it was really coming from my interest in geography and in learning about other people and other places. And that was something that I realized was a key value to me, right? And I saw that aligning with what the program was promoting, and that's why I thought that program was a good fit for me. So I would really encourage anybody who's interested, they on their website and their promotional materials to talk about the various values that their program is promoting, and definitely interdisciplinary collaboration is certainly one of them, but not the only one, right? So I would encourage people who are interested to take a look at what the ethos of that program is and seeing where there's overlap with your personal values. And I'm sure everybody has a different kind of overlap, right? But that's it's certainly if you're applying to Stanford, I encourage anybody to apply to Night Tennessee. Certainly for medical school or law school or whatnot, there's an incredible financial benefit to having that scholarship. And even so, it's a wonderful community to have.
Yeah, I do imagine it's very competitive though. So you're gonna have to have a good idea of what you want out of that program.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time, I remember one of the things that we were told during our interview, and I really do feel that this does match with the goals of the program, is that they said we look for people for whom success is a byproduct, not a goal. And when I was interviewing, I was seeing all of these people with so many accomplishments and awards and all of these things. They started companies and all of that. And I mean, I thought, okay, there's no way I'm ever going to get this thing right. And I really feel like what I emphasize again, I don't have any inside knowledge as to why I was selected or anything like that. But I what I emphasized was about my values and my experiences and how that had shaped my thinking and whatnot, right? And I think that is something which, while it is true that the program is very competitive, if you when you're applying, if you think about those kind of aspects, right, rather than, oh, I need to list my accomplishments on a resume or something like that, then I think that is a better pathway to success. Again, I don't say this with the endorsement of Night NC. I don't know anything about how the selection process is made, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And so what do you want to do with where your life trajectory has gone so far, and what does the future look like, at least in your head so far?
Yeah, so I still got a few years of the PhD to go. So thankfully, it's not a decision I have to make tomorrow because I'm quite undecided. I have the opportunity to pursue further in academia, to postdoc and so forth, or a lot of industry connections at Stanford. It's definitely a place which encourages a lot of entrepreneurship and people doing startups and so forth. So that's also an option. But I also have this kind of pipe dream in my mind, which comes I think also from the interest in geography and the journalism part and whatnot of about the NGO sector, for example, an organization like Doctors Without Borders, which I don't know too many of the specifics, but for example, the kind of work that I was involved with in Zimbabwe, it could be something that an NGO would benefit from having somebody with a scientific research background. So yeah, jobs like that, I would be very interested personally. I think I would find them very meaningful and find them a way to kind of merge my various interests. So, still keeping my options open, and haven't thought in too much detail, especially since I do still have a few years to make that decision.
Yeah, so in these past couple minutes, we've kind of gone from the geography, which is in elementary school, all the way to your current ideas about what the future might look like. And throughout this entire arc, one question I do want to ask is, has geography remained present, or a geographical, I guess, understanding, and how has that manifested and maintained itself?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still have that fascination with maps, and I mean, not that I look at a lot of globes these days, but maps definitely that are it's still it comes from that same place. When I was 2 or 3 years old, of just being curious and just finding it fun. And as I was saying about the political magazine, or going to Zimbabwe, or having this interest in the unique fish that I have ended up working on. Maybe partially because it was from Zimbabwe. All of those things. It's shown up in various maybe unexpected ways. Maybe it's not about geography per se, but the kind of what that whole experience taught me and what it made me realize about what's important to me. That's always been there, I think. Yeah. And I would say that one of the biggest things that I learned about the national from the National Geographic Bee was actually how little I know about the world, about other places, and I think especially when it came to writing those articles for the Politic and also going to Zimbabwe, I think that was a major motivation. It was like, oh, I don't know about this, right? But I want to learn about it. I want to learn firsthand from people, talking to people who have been through these experiences and have this is the kind of, whether it's the hippos in Colombia or whatever, this is what they work on day to day, and I'm just fascinated to hear those stories and to really understand other people's perspectives. And I think that was something that the being curious about geography even from a very young age, as well as the contest specifically, really did instill in me. And I really hope that it's something that will stay with me throughout my life.
Yeah, and for people who are interested in geography and a scientific career as well, do you have any words of advice?
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of ecology research. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about this because it's not something I do myself. And also like infectious disease research and so forth does give you this opportunity, as I had in Zimbabwe, to travel, which is always a wonderful way to get to know people who are in very different situations than your own, right? And to understand that. So I think those are kind of fields which certainly had a lot of appeal to me. It's not exactly what I do right now, but I do feel like those are places where the interest in geography and science can be merged.
Yeah, just to clarify a little more, what I'm trying to specify is, say we have Joe who goes to X university and is an econ major. What does
Mm,
Joe have to gain out of like engaging with these kinds of things that you did, like reading magazines like Yale's Politic or
mm,
traveling to other countries, not as a tourist, but as a volunteer
mm,
or researcher? What does Joe gain, and what are some how like those things are things that viewers of this channel and other people can gain uh,
mm.
from these kinds of experiences?
Yeah, I think you get a different perspective, right? Especially when you get to talk to people, you get to understand certain things that maybe, from our experiences in life, you don't necessarily appreciate always until you see how somebody else's experiences are, and that's something which I think I always had like a personal interest in, and was really stimulating and motivating to me. Um, it's true that might not be the case for everybody, but I at least think it's quite interesting, and yeah, by being interested in geography and in reading about other places and so forth, and talking to people from other places, I think it gives you a perspective different from your own that's can be very can be very rewarding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for your time, Rahul. I think I really appreciate getting to hear from you about your experiences and some lessons that can be applied to both my own life as well as to the life of our viewers. And thank you for what to our viewers for watching this long. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And Rahul, have any last words for them?
Well, thank you for listening, and really appreciated being here, Ahilan. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And yeah, I think it's so wonderful that people are so curious about geography and about the world around us, and just want to encourage that to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.